British Channel, near which, by chance, she got out, hurried into a boat, and was rowed out to a ship, where her lover awaited her. They put to sea, intending to escape to France, but a strong gale blew the ship out of its course, and they were tossed about for many days, completely at the mercy of the waves. At last they were overjoyed to perceive land not far off. When they had reached it, the lovers went ashore in the long boat to find themselves on a lovely island, and, as they wandered over it, they came to a spot, under some noble trees, where they resolved to take up their abode with a few of their fellow voyagers. Some huts were accordingly built, and here the happy couple ensconced themselves. The ship in which they had come was anchored about 3 miles from the shore. After they had been on the island for 3 days, a great tempest arose. The ship was driven from her anchor, and thrown upon the coast of Morocco, where the crew were taken prisoners by the Moors. When the lovers saw that the ship had disappeared, they became frantic with despair, and so deeply affected was the poor young lady, that she died a short time after. Her devoted cavalier, Ma Chin, could not bear this loss, and he, too, died, begging his companions, with his last breath, to bury him in the same grave with his beloved Anne. The few who remained on the island now fitted up the longboat with sails, and attempted to regain Enge land, but they, too, were driven upon the African coast, and, like their companions, were captured by the Moors. In this strange way the Madeiras were discovered by the English, and not by the Portuguese. Among the discoveries made under the direction of Prince Henry of Portugal were the Canary and Cape Verde Islands, and various countries on the coast of Africa as far south as Lower Guinea. In some places they found gold dust, ostrich feathers, and ivory, and other articles of precious value. The ships brought home strange stories of the Negroes, as well as rich merchandise. The passion for discovery in Portugal did not cease with the death of Prince Henry, which occurred in 1463, for, under King John II, the Portuguese advanced still farther southward, to the Congo River. All the islands thus discovered off the African coast were taken possession of in the name of the King of Portugal, and attempts were made to colonize them with his subjects. These attempts were, in many instances, successful. An amusing circumstance, however, rendered the island of Puerto Santo, one of the Madeiras, uninhabitable. In the ship which discovered this island there happened to be a female rabbit, which gave birth to a litter of young rabbits during the voyage. These were let loose upon the island when it was reached, and allowed to remain there, and it is related that the rabbits multiplied so rapidly, that, in 2 years, they completely overran Puerto Santo, and all idea of a human settlement there was given up. With the Negroes on the African coast a brisk trade sprang up, and the fame of Prince Henry, as the father of discovery, became a household word in his own country and throughout Europe. King John, the same who refused the aid which Columbus asked of him, was yet resolved that he would find out, if possible, a way to reach India by sea. He had heard that there was a rich and powerful king in India, called Prester John, who was a Christian. And he thought it would be of great advantage to Portugal if he could communicate with him, and secure his friendship. King John knew that the spices, precious stones, and drugs, that reached the rest of Europe through Venice, came from the east, and that it was said that the Venetians brought them from India by way of Aden, in southern Arabia, Suez, over the country to the Nile, and so up to Alexandria, and across the Mediterranean and the Adriatic. He accordingly selected 2 of his most trustworthy courtiers, named Cavalian and Pava, and told them to travel as best they could towards India by land, and see if they could find Prester John. The 2 young men set out, and, going by way of Florence and Alexandria, arrived safely at Aden. Here they separated, agreeing to meet again at Cairo. As they were now uncertain whether Prester John lived in India or Ethiopia, Pava turned his steps into Africa, where, after visiting the court of a sable sovereign who called himself the Emperor of Ethiopia, and who, Pava thought, might be Prester John, the Portuguese traveler suddenly died. Cavalian, meanwhile, pursued his journey from Aden to India, and succeeded in reaching Calicut and Goa. Here he collected a great deal of information respecting India, and was rejoiced to hear that it was possible to reach India around Africa, but he could get no trace of Prester John. So he returned to Cairo, where he heard the sad intelligence of his comrade Pava's death. At the same time he received a message from King John, telling him to continue his search for the Christian king in the east. Kavalian seems now to have become convinced, like Pava, that Prester John was no other than the emperor of Ethiopia, and so he, too, repaired to that sovereign's court. The emperor treated him with great courtesy and kindness, loaded him with presents, and gave him cordial messages for his royal brother of Portugal. Kavalian was about to depart with these proofs of the emperor's goodwill, when the latter suddenly died. His successor was not so kindly disposed, for he would not let Kavalian go away at all, but kept him a prisoner for many years, until his death. King John never heard of his two faithful explorers again, but the wonderful accounts of India which kept coming to him inspired him with fresh exertions to reach that land of Fabu.